Hey, beautiful souls, welcome. There were some interesting comments under my last video when I was talking about my experience with the emotions that are arising, that we've sort of all been on this roller coaster of emotions. And I wanted to give you my perspective. So I am no expert, I'm no psychiatrist or psychologist. I've just been the observer of my emotions and the emotions of my clients over the years. So ora tiki mia shuka e shiko aseka anya tika ba atuka e tuisht nge tsi betikeka. Azikiti ke shu anya kuke e ju tsi inni na makaya. Segbadia tutu chuko oni nene kike. Ajukia butuku uje se keka obu u de shani ayeku e se ekeka. Ujatsaki enya kuka. Azikibi etsusha. So why do we have emotions in the first place? So my understanding is that emotions are a form of communication. That when we are of a higher frequency, we can understand something, we can grok something by just getting a snapshot of a feeling, of the emotional journey of a being or a situation, and we can understand it through an absorption process. Words are related to this realm and definitely other realms, but when we get higher and higher in frequency, we understand that we are all one, and there's a level of connectedness that we understand. And so we begin to become psychic and understand people without using words, communicate with people ultimately without using words. So the language of God, or the language of the void, or the mother father principle, is emotion, which is energy in motion. So while we've been traveling and exploring and experiencing reality on behalf of this God aspect of us that has sent us on this journey to understand reality from every one of our perspectives, individual perspectives, as we're experiencing the emotions of that, it's being logged or understood or absorbed into this point zero, into this mother father principle. So its knowledge base is growing, and it's actually understanding itself, understanding reality through all of our experiences. Now, words have energy within them, definitely, but how we feel is the most basic form of communication as far as point zero or God or source energy is concerned. So when we came into this experience of polarity, it was a different experience altogether because of the emotion on one end of the spectrum in comparison to the emotion on the other end of the spectrum. And so we've been in this realm swinging backwards and forwards between these polarities in different ways, in different situations, and experiencing and feeling about our experiences in this world. So we, in a way, don't need to experience an emotion over and over and over again. That when we become conscious and aware, self-aware of our emotional trajectory, our emotional ebb and flow, we can gain the wisdom and incorporate that wisdom into our being. And thus that knowledge ends up being clocked or absorbed by point zero, by God, by source. Now, we've been stuck on a hamster wheel for numerous reasons that I've spoken about before. And this hamster wheel of emotion has tended to be heavy, dense, emotions, which are related to this realm, which we can see all around us. So I talk about that sediment at the bottom of the pond. That is our consciousness. It's our shadow. Often it can be referred to as that as well. It is the parts of us that we've disowned, or parts of us that we have not been willing to dive into and resolve. So we've been pushing these emotions down. And in some cases, we needed to in order to survive, in order to cope, particularly as children, when these initial emotions are felt, we don't have any capacity to really understand them and to process them. So as we get older, we get busy with our lives. We get busy with paying the mortgage or working 9 to 5, and we never really go into a concerted discovery process to understand the emotions that are just sort of floating around. Now, they come up from time to time, and sometimes they're sort of out of control. And that would be something that would motivate the average person to go and get help and go and see somebody. Ijikamoke baka se ite ze shushe kia kuka ojashanya maka. Artikebi tse ki enyaku ezekeka. So what do you do with these emotions? When you're on a spiritual path, you understand, or I understand for myself, that these emotions need to be seen. They need to be felt and understood in order to transmute the energy that's really at the core of them and release it so that our energy signature changes as we begin to do this. And as we begin to process and release these heavy, dense energies, our frequency will become lighter and more free. Now, one of the things that I've had to deal with, as I mentioned in my last video, was rage, was anger. And my sister once told me that she remembered how angry I was as a child, and that I would, fly off the handle as a little kid. Now, I understand why now, but I actually have no remembrance, no memory of getting angry as a child. And in fact, I haven't really been an angry person most of my life. And I understand the divine timing in this, that the reason I was angry had a very serious basis, had a very traumatic basis, that I had no control over things, terrible things that happened to me as a child. And I was not allowed to show resistance or anger because I would get into trouble. And yet I still did explode, according to my sister. So I've been not really in touch with that emotion. And I actually remember the day probably about, say, 6 or 7 years ago, that I first let my anger out. Now, on my journey, which started when I was in my late 20s, seriously started in my late 20s, I went to a weekend workshop once, which was on anger. And what we had to do was they had flexible mattresses. So there'd be 2 people that would hold up a mattress. They would bend it into an L shape. And there'd be 2 or 3 people holding it here. And you would lay down on your back and kick the mattress to express the anger. And I would kick and nothing would come up. There was another one where it was slightly higher. So you would kneel down and then use your arms. So the idea is that the anger's trapped in your hip joints and in your muscles and in your shoulders and in your jaw. So there were all these exercises to express and release the energy of the anger. And it never happened for me. I tried all of these things, and I knew that I had a problem with my mother. I knew that. And yet I still couldn't get to the anger. I have other issues and I don't have much anger. So I've been traveling on my journey through the school that I went to, the spiritual school, through all of my life experiences, not really having much anger, having sadness and depression, certainly, not really wanting to be alive would come up from time to time. Now, I remember, as I said, when I first encountered my anger, and it was about approximately 6 years ago. And I had just moved to Sydney, which is a big city, metropolitan city. And I was in a parking garage, and somebody cut me off. And I wound down the window, or I pressed the button to open the window, and I leaned out and shouted at the other driver. Now, I was shocked. It was so out of character for me. I had come from the country where it's fairly laid back and the traffic's no big deal. But when I got into the city, the energy of the city was already chaotic. I hadn't really lived in a big city for many, many years. When I was in the United States, I lived in sort of pretty much a rural area, occasionally going to the city and coming out. But I was now living in the city, and this energy, this anger came up, and it was like the cork had been taken out of the bottle. And I have had to deal with anger since that time. Now, I know that you need to feel it without directing it at anyone or anything. So my process is you get a pillow on your lap and you just feel the energy and you beat the pillow. And this allows the energy to move. And it comes from what I experienced that weekend, all those decades ago, of processing anger. So when it's released, you feel lighter and freer. And it's not, so when somebody or something triggers you, you understand that it's mirroring something to you, attempting to get you to understand the content of your energy signature. What is on here that may be a part of that hamster wheel experience. So you become interested in your emotions. So when I say, the phrase I suppose is, you are not your emotions. They are, in a way, the unfinished business. It's how your unfinished business is stored in your body. And when you observe them, so you don't be the emotions, you be the awareness of the emotion. You become the observer. So you pull two molecules out of the experience and you are watching yourself go through it. Now, there is a book also that I read many, many years ago by E.J. Gold, and he recommended something similar. And what he said was, when you're in the middle of an emotional, say, moment, so say you're crying, say you're angry, whatever it is, when you're at the height of that emotion, if you can, go and look at yourself in the mirror while you're going through that emotion. And what it can do is like help you become the observer of this release of emotion. So there was somebody who made a comment that said they felt like they'd been held down in the sediment, that she had felt angry all of her life. Now, there are some of us that never really wanted to be here in the first place. There are some of us who just got sent back, and at a deep level, it wasn't what we wanted. So there is a fight within us, a rage within us for being here. So for anybody that's dealing with any of the emotions, find that place of the observer. Understand that it isn't you. You are the energy inhabiting the system, inhabiting the body. You are the God spark. And this avatar is the means of, it was originally the means of having this experience of polarity. But because of the external interference, because of what's been happening in this realm for quite a while, we have been conditioned to stay on that hamster wheel. So the incoming energies, the higher frequencies, the Christ consciousness is gamma frequency coming to us. And when there's a higher frequency in the same area as a lower frequency, what happens is the lower is often pulled up to meet the higher. And what that essentially means is as this energy comes in, and all of this stuff on the hamster wheel, which is heavy and dense, it comes up to be seen and to be felt. So look at this, what we're going through, as, I suppose, a science experiment. Be the observer, be the scientist, be curious, depersonalize in a way all the emotions that you're going through. And remember, it's never about the person that's doing it to you, ultimately. It's not about the things that are happening in your world, ultimately. On some level, it's all an illusion to trigger you to understand this. What have you got? What's your unresolved issues that are still encoded in your energy system and are at the core of the emotions that you're triggered to feel? So when you begin to observe them, and as the observer, as the awareness of the emotion, and depersonalize them and drop in and feel them as best you can, the energy at the core begins to alchemize and dissipate, and you will slowly heal everything that's kept you on that hamster wheel. Another way to look at it is, as Shakespeare said, all the world is a stage, and we are just players upon that stage. So when I'm going into some sort of challenging situation, it's popped up in front of me and I'm reacting, one of the things I do is say, oh, I wrote a scene that is made up of this interaction. And who is going through that triggering is the character that I have written, called Joe, in a way of speaking. So I'm watching the character be triggered. I am watching the avatar be triggered to feel these emotions. I'm like I'm in the wings of the stage, of the theatre stage, and I'm the producer and the writer. I'm the props master, the person that puts all of the costumes together. And I've written all the lines, I've written all the other characters that interact with this one. It's just another way to separate out and not identify with the emotions as you. The emotions are just energy in motion. It is something that needs to be felt and released. Umbreti shezeki anie tukuyo botosh desta. Ijesi anie kia su kia kuka ajesa. Now, somebody else commented that this can happen through us going to a therapist, going to a counselor, and that is absolutely a great thing to do. If you need support, absolutely do it. Go and speak it. And in this safe environment, allow those emotions to come out. But as this commenter said, it also happens organically from time to time. And that's what happened to me those last two times that I spoke about. In the park when I had grief, and then on the way in the car, I had rage come up. Now, my understanding is, and again, this is not anything official, my understanding is depression is not being who you really are. It isn't following the truth of what you are or who you are. And if you are not expressing the truthful emotions that are roiling around inside of you, and you are putting on a brave face, or you are soldiering on for the sake of the children or the sake of the job, that's where depression comes from. It is that top layer. When you, for me, depression has been an issue for me a lot, my life. And I know that it is because that rage about what happened to me and about being here as well, because I've always struggled with wanting to be here. When I let go of that depression, the next thing was grief. I think the top layer is depression. The next layer is the sadness. And that's what came up to be cleared last December for me. And then the next layer down is really the rage. And the rage is the most frightening for us because it's really can be like you're out of control. And also it frightens other people often. And because we're showing them their unfelt rage. So when you get into trouble as a kid for getting angry and you get a smack and told not to be angry, I feel it is connected to your parent's inner child who also has anger about whatever and was never allowed to experience it or express it. And so when we as little kids get angry, it triggers the inner child of the parent. Umbareatia shaka ashushe ni nenenikika. Azabotoya shushe esi anyaku edekika. So rage is the scariest one. We think it will, in a way, annihilate us to some degree because it can be so deep and powerful. So if you need help to process this, find somebody to get help, find a counselor, find an inner child healer, find somebody that can be with you. Begin to observe small moments of anger. Like you were never given, in a way, more than you can handle. So for me, why did my rage, my anger not come up until 6, 7 years ago? Because I wasn't ready to unpack what the rage was about. I only found out and began having flashbacks to confirm what I'd always suspected had happened to me as a child those 6 or 7 years ago. So my deeper intelligence, my deeper mind wanted me to get to a level of maturity and experience in my life before me facing that. So trust the divine timing on this. So start with smaller things. So if you get cut off in traffic, for example, and you get cranky at the person that's done it, be the observer of that small amount of anger and breathe it and feel it. Don't judge yourself for it. Don't beat yourself up for being out of control or being mean or anything like that, being irrational. Don't. It is, I would say there's a lot of rage. The amount of people that are depressed, that are on antidepressants in the world, in Western countries at least, is quite large, I understand. So there are many people who are not really aware of their emotions. Now, what will happen for some people when they go to watch this video and they find that it's about emotions? They'll just turn it off. I have talked with certain people, and as you're talking to them and you begin to talk about the emotions, and that's been what I've been interested in within me and within the inner child, is they will zone out. They just get this glazed look because they've got a barrier up, and it doesn't interest some people. It's not exciting. It's not, you know, interesting for people. It is something that they've learned to ignore and put away. So when you begin to feel your emotions, and in particular anger, that's when you are really going to start moving in an evolutionary path, because that hamster wheel of emotions is what is maintaining the status quo. So as you begin to observe and feel your emotions day by day, bit by bit, you begin the transmutation of that energy. And trust in that deeper aspect of you, that it will come up when you need it. It will come up organically sometimes, like it did for me, out of nowhere. But trust that you're ready to deal with it. Trust that you won't be annihilated by the deep, deep feelings that may arise. Ijukanyakuka sebetike su ejesa. Andiatsu e kikeka, umbriatsa, artike sukayana, ummeninekika, ummeninekika, sebetika, sukeya su sebitea su shanye nokoyo. Inukoyo botushtesta se I e kike, innea zukeya, uretika, shemia, semia, sia, pue kike, saye nokoyo. And breathe. Ujesi kaka uetiatsa. So this video may have brought up some emotions because of the thought of looking within the shadow, looking within the sediment. Imbeasuke kike ani tokoyo. Just keep breathing, feeling, letting go, choosing and intending for the energy to be transmuted, and feel and be patient with however long it takes. Be patient with yourself. Love yourself. Find compassion for yourself and ride the wave with the observer as the awareness of that ride. Embeki shujesika ambakaya tsuse eniatushaka shekikandi sta akike shedekikambandi seki ono shesha. So many blessings, beautiful souls. Ezukayo chutsanye uka.